Hey everyone, welcome back to another After Effects tutorial. In today's video, we're going to take a look at making the wasted GIFs that were popularized by Grand Theft Auto. I'm sure you've seen these before. They're really easy, they're real fun. Let's get started. We're going to need only two things for this, our footage and this handy dandy wasted MP4 template so graciously provided by ER1C1996 of the Reddit Wasted GIFs community. I will link that in the description of the video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring this nice template in and let's talk about it. So with the wasted GIFs, there's generally the idea of two flashes. The first flash is mostly when the person strikes an object or hits something, and the second flash is when they're either laying on the ground or they're immobile in some way. So first thing you're going to notice is that this is all green and we can't see anything. This is actually perfect shade of green. This is good for green screening. And so basically we're just going to key out all of these colors so that they become transparent. So in order to do that, we're going to go to the wasted layer, right click, keying, key light. We want to set the screen color and we're going to eyedropper this green, and there we go, it's gone. Basically anywhere it finds this green, it will turn it to an alpha channel. And you can adjust the screen gain and balance if you need to, but the color should match very well since this is all digital green screen and not an actual physical one. So what that does now is we're going to get that nice fading right on top of our video. And basically most of the work's already done for you. In fact, if you don't really want to do much more editing, this video right here would be perfect right now. You see, that's a very nice template there. But, you know, we want to add our own little flair. We want to do our own thing, make it look nice, make it look different. So let's go over a couple of the things that we can do. So the first thing we want to do is go ahead and mark when he hits the object. So about right here. A little shortcut, if we do Shift F or Shift 1, that's going to give us a marker that anytime I hit 1, it's going to bring me back here. That's a nice little tip for you. So the first thing we want to do is actually match up the first flash when he strikes this object. So I'm going to go to this point in time and I'm going to drag this layer around right until the apex of the color change. I'd say about right there. Let's see how that looks. Actually, I'd rather be more of a mystery. Let's get the black bars to show up right when he's doing it. Yeah, perfect. Alright. So we've taken care of our first flash. And then the second one can come at any time. You can see that even the way I've done it right here, this looks pretty good. But if we want to stick true to the game, there's a couple things that they do for stylization. One that I've noticed is that between the flashes there's kind of a frame rate change. So after the first flash it seems to drop by about half the frame rate, and then it seems to drop again by half with the last section. So in order to do that, let's go to right when we do our clip, and I'm going to clip on the footage and do Control-Shift-D to cut it or split it. Now that I have my own secondary layer, I'm going to come here, go to Layer, and time stretch, and I'm going to change this from 100, which is 100%, to 150. That'll make it a bit slower. So now when we do our preview, you're going to see it looks more like it's in slow motion because we've changed that time stretch factor. And it's starting to look a little bit more like how it would look in the game. That's not too bad. And then what we can do is on the flash, we can cut this again and go to Layer, Time Stretch, and we'll say 200 now. Let me just RAM preview this. Okay. A little bit slow and even slower. That's starting to look pretty good. The thing that I like to do actually is there seems to be a few jump cuts in the game before the wasted text actually shows up. So I'm going to keep all of this the same, where they strike the object, it does the flip, and then you don't necessarily see them sliding to a stop. It's more like they're on their way and then the game will just cut to it. So let's say about right here where he's sliding, we'll just stop that. Let's go ahead and undo our original cut. So we're back to this again. So I'm going to stop him when he's sliding about, let's go about right here. So go ahead and cut this, and then I'm going to just drag it over to a point that he's just kind of laying there. I think that's pretty good. Do a few more cuts. There we go. Alright, so let's take a look at what we have now. Alright, so what we want to do now is match up when he's on the ground with the wasted text cut. So I'm going to come to the frame where we see him laying down, and I'm going to go ahead and cut the wasted layer. Split. So now we've got the one flash at the beginning, and then we need to match up the second flash at this point in time. So the good thing about the way the template works is that if you notice, if I click on this, after there's a slight color change, you can see there's no differences on all these frames. So these are all good spots for us to go ahead and split this layer without there being any adverse effects. So where I actually split it is going to be nice because I'm going to be able to change the timing on how the wasted text will show up. So you can see I can move this around. And we're going to move this over until I get to here. Cut that again. Delete. Okay, so now that we've trimmed it, so we basically just made the first flash line up, and then we made the second flash line up. And since the wasted template is very long, it gives us all that time to work in. So I was able to cut the wasted layer into 2 layers, and then shift around the point in time that you see where the wasted text shows up. And so now I've got this nice jump cut. So now this is starting to look a little bit more like the game, where you'll kind of run into a car and then magically it flashes over and your guy's laying on the ground. Now there's still a few other things that we need to add in here. For one, there is a nice little zoom blur effect that they do. So let's go ahead and do that as well. So let's start right on this frame, and we're going to go ahead and choose the footage layer and say blur, CC radial fast blur. I'm going to hide these so you can see what's going on here. It does this really nice streaked blur depending on which center you set. So I can move this little guy around here, we'll get some different blur. So I'm going to go ahead and center it on this guy. Okay, and we're actually going to start at 0. Okay, and we'll go a couple frames, and let's kick it up to say 75. That way we get this nice blur kind of turning on us. Okay, so what we want to do is we actually want this to coincide with the apex of the wasted text. So I see I have it a few frames early, so I'm going to actually shift this over, and then we'll redrag this guy out. See, that way it kind of does the zoom blur into wasted. And then as it's fading back out, you can go ahead and bring that down. We'll leave a little bit, we'll leave like 15, that way it just still has a little bit of effect on it. So we got this nice little transition into the wasted showing up. This is looking pretty good. Now one thing they do also is that when they do this nice zoom blur here, they actually do zoom in on the character. So I'm going to start at this frame, and I'm going to bring up the position and the scale, and we'll keyframe those. Let's hit U, and then we want to go all the way up to this point, and let's bring the scale way up. Let's go ahead and kind of recenter him, make sure we don't get outside of our composition. I think that's looking pretty good. And so what it does is it's going to zoom in on him. You know, kind of like we're giving this guy all of our focus here. So let's go ahead and buffer that out and see how it looks. Collide, slow down, zoom, more slow. Looking good. Maybe we could tone down the fast border to maybe a 10 instead. Okay, there is one other element we're missing, and that would be the saturation color. If you notice, it does get awfully black and white after the wasted text shows up. So let's go ahead and say color correction and hue saturation. And if we play around with the saturation, you can see we can basically get that zero color effect. Now I think that also happens to occur during the first impact, so I actually want to limit this color as well. So I'm going to copy this, paste it in here, and change this guy's colors as well, because it's nice and cheery here. Once there's an impact, once the color starts, let's go ahead and keyframe before him, and then up to the maximum color apex change, and we'll say -50. So it's colorful here, and then we've lost some color in the meantime, but we still have some color. We don't want to do too much. We still want to give that sort of shaded look that we're then going to accentuate even more when we come over to hit this scene. Now we want to make sure we do start off with -50 so that we're matching the same saturation as our previous frames. Okay, and I'll go ahead and keyframe that. And then we'll do the same thing right when we see the text. We'll bring him all the way down -100. That way it's a nice fade in. And that way we get the black and white. Let's go ahead and RAM preview that. That's good enough. Alright, let's see what we got. Collision minus color, frame rate change, more color, zoom blur. And the template even has that nice little extra kind of flare at the end there. You'll see the whole screen gets a little bright for a second, kind of like a heartbeat. It's a very nice template. It works really well. You can see we did a couple of modifications here. Basically did a CC radial fast blur along with some hue saturation changes, some zooming position changes, and then just overall working around the template. And that's a very good looking project. Hope you guys learned something here and enjoyed the video.